Good morning, Year 2, and welcome back to your online home learning. I'm here to join you for some more maths learning this morning, but just before I share my screen, I wanted to start off by saying a huge thank you and a huge well done to all of you that sent your learning in to us yesterday. For your maths in particular, I was so impressed to see your fantastic pictograms that you were drawing and your fantastic confidence in using those keys, because that was a really tricky task for you. So a huge well done. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen and we can get going. Okay, here we are. So to start off with then, I have a pictogram for us on the screen, and I have 3 questions that I'd like us to answer about this pictogram. Okay, so just before I read the questions to you, I'd like you to have a look at the pictogram and have a look at the key. Okay, make sure you're looking really carefully at the categories and looking at what each symbol represents. Okay, I'm going to read the questions to you now, and I'd like you to just think about, as I'm reading them, what you think the answers might be, and then you can take some time to pause the video and talk through the answers yourself. Okay, so the first question is, what was the least popular drink? The next question was, how many children chose water and lemonade all together? And the last question was, what could the title of this pictogram be? Okay, so just pause the video here and have a go, taking your time to go through those 3 questions. Okay, so the least popular drink was the milk. 15 children chose water and lemonade all together, and the title could be a pictogram to show children's favourite drinks. Now, if your title was different to mine, then that's absolutely okay. Okay, so just before we begin our learning today, I wanted us to just reflect back on our learning from last lesson. What did we learn to do in our last lesson together? Okay, so in our last lesson, you were learning to draw pictograms, okay, and you were learning to interpret pictograms. So just before we continue, I'd like you to think about, what is a pictogram? Just remind yourselves of what a pictogram is. Okay, so a pictogram is a chart that uses pictures to represent data. Pictograms are set out in the same way as bar charts, but instead of bars, they use columns of pictures to show the numbers. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to another method of data collection today. And today we're going to be learning to make block diagrams. You may have also heard of these as block graphs. So I wonder if you know what a block diagram is, and please don't worry if you're not sure what a block diagram is, because that's what we're going to be going through together today. Okay, so what do you think a block diagram might be? Okay, so a block diagram is a simple chart which displays units of data with blocks. So like a pictogram displays units of data with pictures or symbols, a block diagram uses blocks. So block diagrams have 2 axes and are a common method of recording information in maths. Okay, so let's have a look at an example block diagram together. So here we go on the screen, we can see a block diagram. Okay, and we can see our information on our axes here. We can see the different methods of transport along the bottom, and then the number of transport along the side. Okay, so just like a pictogram, each block in our block diagram represents an amount. Now each block can represent 1, 2, 5 or 10, just like our symbols in our key representing 1, 2, 5 or 10. This is the same. But today in our block diagrams, we're just going to be focusing on each block representing 1, just like this block diagram you can see on the screen. Okay, so as you can see on this pictogram here, the types of each object are always written along the bottom, which we call our x-axis. Okay, and then the number of each object is written along the side, which we call our y-axis. Okay, and if the data, for example, was all about the number of pets in class 4, then we would have the names of the pets at the bottom, so rabbit, cat, dog, and then we'd have the numbers up the side. But it's always the categories along the bottom, the x-axis, and the numbers along the side, the y-axis. Okay. Now we use block diagrams because they are easier and quicker for us to compare data than using a tally chart or pictogram. So we can easily look at the number of children that came to school by car, for example. Much quicker to count the total using a block diagram. Okay, so let's have a go at making a block diagram together. So we've got a table here, table of information. Class 4 are collecting data about their favourite colours. So I want you to have a go, either using post-it notes, using cubes, maybe using pasta, using sweets, using whatever you like, to have a go at making a block diagram to represent this data. Now you may want to make your axes using rulers. You may want to take a piece of paper and just draw out a line coming down and a line going across. You may want to write out the colours and write out the numbers along your axes, okay, and then have a go building up your block diagram. So if you're using toys, for example, you need to get 2 toys to represent yellow, 5 toys to represent the blue, and so on. Okay, so that you're building, you're using 1 item to represent each block. Okay, now as a challenge X, as a little bit more of a challenge, once you've completed that, I'd like you to have a go at building another block diagram, at this time to show your family's favourite colours. So you may want to ask your mum, your dad, what their favourite colours are, and record those on a tally chart or record those in a table like this, and then have a go at completing a block diagram to show that data. Okay, now I am going to show you my example in a moment so that you can see what it looks like in case you're a little bit stuck. Okay, so let's go through my example together and hopefully it'll become a little bit more clear. Okay, so I've taken just a big piece of paper here, and you don't need to do this, okay, you can just build it on your floor or on your table. You don't have to make it to draw it out on a piece of paper like this. So I've drawn my axes going down and across. I've written out the colours and I've written out the numbers going up to 8 because that's my highest number in my table. And then I've just taken some cubes. So I've used 1 cube to represent each block. And as you can see here, I've drawn my cubes going up like this. Now, in my block diagram, my blocks should be together. So I shouldn't have gaps in between each column. Okay, so that was one mistake that I made. That's something I need to improve to make sure I don't have a gap in between each column. Okay, so try and make sure that when you're building your block diagrams, whatever you're using, that those columns, that those different categories are touching. Okay, so just as another challenge then, I wonder what the title of this block diagram could be. So remember, when we're writing a title for a pictogram, we'd always write a pictogram to show and explain what the pictogram is showing. So what could the title of this block diagram be, I wonder? Okay, so if I'm looking now, then I might think, okay, it'd be a block diagram to show, and a block diagram to show children's favourite colours, or a block diagram to show class 4's favourite colours. Okay, so that is just one example there. I'm going to show you another table now, and we'll use that to try and make another block diagram. Okay, so this time, this table is all about favourite pets. Okay, so first of all, what data is this table showing? Once you've thought about that, I'd like you to use either your cubes, your post-it notes, your pasta, your Hatchimals, whatever you want to use to create your block diagram. Remember, you're using one item to represent each block. Now you can choose to build this on the floor, you can choose to draw your axes out on a piece of paper and then use your items. Okay, it would be great to see you having a go at labelling your axes, whether that is getting a scrap piece of paper and just writing out those different categories. So writing out dog, cat, rabbit and fish. Okay, once you've had a go at that, again, I'd like you to try and think of a title for your block diagram. What could the title of your block diagram be? Okay, so I'm just going to show you my example again. Now I've had a go at completing this one on the computer. Okay, so I've drawn my axes. I've got my numbers going up the side. Now I need to go up to 9 this time because 9 is my greatest number. And then I've got my categories going along the bottom. So dog, cat, rabbit and fish. And then I have my blocks. Now again, my blocks should be touching. I shouldn't have gaps in between each category. Again, that's something that I want you to make sure that you're doing, making sure that you don't have a gap in between each category. Okay, so the title of this block diagram is a block diagram to show children's favourite pets. Okay, so there is my block diagram and my title as well. I think there's one more for us to have a go at, and this time we have a tally chart. Okay, so let's have a look at what data this tally chart is showing. So we can see the item, we can see some different items there, and we can see our totals. What do you think this tally chart is showing? Okay. Now, it could be showing us anything, really. It could be showing us the number of scissors, glue sticks and pens in a classroom, or the number of items that are in your home. Okay, so again, I'd like you to try and use this tally chart to make a block diagram, either using cubes, post-it notes, teddies, pasta, whatever you want to use. Okay, now your challenge X this time, once you've completed that, is I'd like you to write 2 facts about this data. So 2 pieces of information. You may want to tell me the most common item, how many there is most of, or you may want to tell me how many there is least of, which item is the least popular item. Okay, so let's have a go at my example again. So I've got my block diagram here, and this time my blocks are touching. So this is what my block diagram should look like. So I have my categories going along the bottom, and I have my numbers going up the side. Okay, and I've got my blocks there to represent each of those items. Okay, now again, you can use items to create this. You don't have to draw blocks, because we'll be drawing our own block diagrams in our learning tomorrow. So I've just written a couple of facts about this block diagram. So there are 3 more glues than pens, and there are 5 fewer scissors than glues. Okay. So finally then, for your practice, we've got a pictogram and a block diagram here. So at the zoo, Mo keeps a record of how many big cats he sees. Dora has tried to show the same information on a block diagram, but she has made a mistake. What mistake has Dora made? Have a really good look at this pictogram, and also have a look at the key. What mistake has Dora made? I wonder if you can spot the mistake that she has made. Make sure you look at each of those categories, look at the pictogram, and then look at the block diagram, see if you can spot the mistake. Okay, so let's go through that together then. Hopefully you've had some time to decide what you think the mistake might be. So Dora has forgotten to look at the key. She thinks that each symbol represents one, but in fact, each symbol represents two. So if we have a look at the leopard, for example, there are 2, 4, 6 leopards. But if we look at her block diagram, she's just shown us there are 3 leopards. So she's forgotten to look at the key. So she should have 6 blocks for the leopard, 8 blocks for the cheetah, 4 blocks for the lion, and 10 blocks for the tigers. Okay, so she's got half of what she should have. Okay, so for your challenge today then, year 2, I'd like you to just have a go at completing 2 more block diagrams in the most creative way possible. Okay, so using all of those items in your home, making them as large as you want to. So there are 2 different tables of information here. One of them is showing us shoe size. One of them is showing us breakfast options. Okay, one of them the numbers are a little higher than the other. So for each table, I want you to follow these instructions. Number 1, use an item to represent the data, whether this is cubes, whether this is pasta, Hatchimals, toys, whatever you choose. Number 2, I'd like you to try and draw the axes. That might be either you draw them out on a piece of paper, or whether you want to make them using rulers or something like that, something else straight. Then label the axes, whether this is using post-it notes, whether this is using big pieces of paper. Then I want you to come up with a title for your block diagram. And then a final challenge is I want you to write 5 facts about the data. Okay, so that is your challenge for today. Okay, so let's go through our challenge X for today then. So we have got 3 tables of data here. I want to know which set of data we could display using the block diagram, which could you use the pictogram, which could you use the tally chart, and I want you to try and explain your reasoning, explain why. Okay, so you can see here we have data set 1, data set 2, and data set 3. And make sure you look carefully, because in the block diagram, you can see going up the side, multiples of 2, so we're counting up in 2s instead of 1s. The pictogram, the key, one symbol represents 10. Okay, so use that information to help you decide which data set matches with which data collection method. Okay, so let's have a look together then. So data set 3 would best suit the block diagram because the numbers are all under 20 and they're all multiples of 2 as well. Data set 2 would best suit the pictogram because the numbers are larger but are all multiples of 5 or 10. And data set 1 would best suit the tally chart because some of the numbers are larger than 20, but they are not all multiples of 5 or 10. Okay, so that is your challenge X. That was a really tricky one today, so well done for persevering through that. Finally then, let's have a look at our fluency number sentence. 8 multiplied by 5. Okay, you may want to draw a jotting to help you find the answer to this. I wonder how many ways you can show your workings out. Maybe you could draw me an array, maybe you could draw me 8 groups of 5. Okay, have a go at showing me those workings out and we'll go through the answer together in a moment. Okay, so 8 multiplied by 5 equals 40. Well done if that was the answer that you found as well. Okay, well, a huge thank you, Year 2, for joining me again for another maths lesson this morning. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you enjoyed learning all about block diagrams. I really hope you enjoy getting creative and creating your own block diagrams too. Have a really wonderful day and I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye bye for now.